Hello and welcome to iCatholic. I'm Wendy Grace. So, what defines a Catholic school? How would you describe it? This is a discussion that's going to be pretty pertinent here in Ireland as we're really looking at the divestment of Catholic schools, but various types of schools are going to have to really show us what they're all about, what their ethos means, so parents can decide what they want in their local communities. Join with us to discuss this from the Catholic Education Partnership. I have Alan Hynes. Okay, I'm going to start with that big question then.
Sure.
Defining a Catholic school, how do you do it?
Well, it is a really big question. And the thing is, the definition of what a Catholic school is or what a Catholic education should be about moves with the times as well. As much as the church itself has to respond to the challenges of the age or the needs of the age, Catholic education too has to respond. So I would say, certainly in the context of Ireland today, one, it is a school that is faithful to the Catholic ethos. So in other words, how it lives, how it conducts itself, the culture of the school, how its staff, how its pupils may behave and act towards each other. The authenticity, of how they communicate the faith. And that it is done not just in the sense of teaching what is the content of the faith, but actually the personal witness of all of the staff, principal teachers, SNAs, and so on and so forth. But
is there danger, Alan, at the moment that I find it quite interesting that if you looked at just the media narrative a lot of the time, it's Catholic schools, dark ages, bad. But when you talk to parents in local communities a lot of the time, and I know your own research, and would say, oh, actually, I'm quite happy with my local school. In a sense, we've demonised Catholic schools in many ways. How do you respond to that and to how some people kind of portray them?
One of the things where we struggle against, I suppose, is that people my age, people older than me, can have a certain memory of school. So policymakers, TDs, even civil servants and so on, can be acting on a model of school that existed when they were kids. Schools have changed radically over the last 20, 30 years, far more colourful spaces. So that's one of the problems. People are operating on a model of school that no longer exists.
Anecdotally, I have a lot of friends who mightn't be like me. They mightn't be practicing their faith the way I do, but they really like what the school offers their child and they like the ethos.
Yeah. You see, one of the things we have to offer is meaning. I mean, this is something where we can actually say we have something distinctive to offer than, let's say, non-faith schools. So we can talk about the other models of Christian school or other faiths that are there, but let's just take faith schools versus non-faith schools. All faith schools are proposing some vision of the human person, but also how they fit into an overall sense of meaning and purpose to human life. And all faiths speak to that. Obviously, as Christians, as Catholics, we have a particular view of the importance of where God enters into history and doesn't just reveal what God is or tell us more about God, but in fact more particularly presents a full vision of what the human person is. And Catholic schools, Catholic education has to respond to that vision, the complete vision of the human person. So a human person not understood just as an economic unit or not solely, let's say, as kind of moving to now as a citizen of the world or kind of a rights bearer or duty bearer even, but actually a person who matters in themselves, who has an essential dignity, who gains that dignity from being made and known personally by God. Again, our schools, all of this should come through the sense for the dignity of the person, the importance of the individual. Catholic education, again, at its best, would be an education that's focused on the spiritual, on the intellectual, on the physical, the moral, the artistic, and so on and so forth. But an individual rooted in a sense of meaning in terms of relation to God, but also in relation to their own community, and a sense of purpose that our life has an ultimate goal.
Where does divestment come into all this? Because while there's some people that are watching going, yeah, I like to send out, there's others going, no, I don't want a bishop to be the patron of my school. How is that process evolving at the moment?
Well, in fairness, one, I would say the Irish Constitution, following international human rights conventions, recognises the parents as being the primary educators of their children. The Constitution, actually, our Constitution, even though it's kind of generally condemned by some today as being some horrible regressive thing, it's actually very progressive, particularly when you consider the year, the 1930s, mid to late 1930s when it came in. In education, in fact, funny enough, it preempts a lot of stuff that you later find in international human rights conventions in the 40s and 50s. So another important part, there has to be something, how do you give life to the idea of the parent being the primary educator? So built into the International Convention on Human Rights, and particularly the Convention dealing with socio-economic rights, and in our Constitution, is this idea that parents have a right to send their children to schools that reflect their philosophical or religious beliefs. Our Constitution also gives their parents that right, but furthermore provides public funding to such schools. Now, that's quite common through Europe. There's public funding for faith schools. So at one stage in Ireland, when we were a very, very Catholic country, it made sense for about 90% of the schools to be Catholic. It reflected the views of most parents in most areas. Our society has changed. The last census, there was about 67% of people, tick the Catholic box on the census. In fact, if you look though at the, let's say, Irish-born population, it's a little bit higher. It's about 76%. But so our population is changing. It's secularised anyway, but also we've obviously a lot of newcomer communities. About a fifth of our population are foreign-born. You've significant Muslim population now, even Hindu, but also other Christian denominations. And then you have a very large number of people now who no longer have any faith. So parents now have different needs. So there's a greater variety of school required, school types.
There's a temptation also, though, to blame the Catholic schools for the fact that we, as a nation, through our policy, hasn't kept up with that change. That it's the Catholic schools' fault. We have to step back and say, hang on a second, our society and culture has changed, but we've been lagging behind in responding to that.
And it goes a bit further than that. It's sometimes presented as almost, well, one, our fault, and two, our responsibility. Our fault for things being the way they are, and our responsibility to change it. The actual real responsibility of responding to pluralism in education is the state's. The state is supposed to provide support for a plurality of schools. It has struggled to do that. It has not responded properly to the changing nature of Irish society. And, it is now struggling to do so. The Catholic Church, the Catholic patrons recognise that even though it's the state's responsibility, we, just practically speaking, and also from our own commitment to the common good, and if we properly respect the rights of parents as the primary educators, we don't want parents feeling they're forced to send their children to our schools. Because if we respect the rights of Catholic parents, we've got to respect the rights of others. So we're happy to assist the state in its duty in providing a proper plural choice in schools. And that's what the Catholic bishops our Catholic patrons, and mainly bishops of primary, are attempting to do now by engaging with the state in the divestment process. But this is a really difficult process. You have radical voices who seem to think, they just want somebody to come in and kind of tear schools out. We're just going to pick 400 schools and make them secular or, multi-denominational. That's just not going to happen. I mean, politicians, as much as the church, understand these schools, local communities have a very strong sense of ownership of these schools. And it is funny sometimes to hear liberal people or progressives kind of demand almost that the bishops just go in and slam down the crozier in some stereotypical old-fashioned way and tell a community what to do. The only way this change is going to happen is by consensus. And it's a slow process, it's a difficult process. A lot of our progressive friends are getting very impatient with it. And they want, a kind of a solution from the top to be imposed down. The other thing I think people struggle a bit to appreciate is there's quite a lot of support for Catholic schools from non-Catholics.
I know that a lot of the research has been done about inclusivity and including children from different faith backgrounds or no faith. Generally, when the parent feedback comes in on those, it's really good. It's saying, hang on, you're doing a great job at inclusion. And I know when there's been some areas where they've done pilot schemes of divestment, there has been this kind of horror at, well, actually the community want to keep their Catholic school.
Yeah, and not just the Catholic community. I mean, so what they found, there was a recent pilot divestment project. It was about 63 different communities around Ireland were surveyed and engaged with to see if there was going to be divestment. What we found, particularly in the urban areas where you just have concentrations of some of the Muslim population of Ireland, but particularly here in Dublin, you had strong resistance to it from Muslim families who really value what Catholic schools offer. We are not of their faith, but we are people of faith. And when they send their children to our schools, they have found a respect for their faith in our schools. This isn't just in Ireland. Actually, this is quite common in other countries. The UK, my colleague over there, my counterpart in the English Catholic Education Service, they would report their schools are very popular with Muslim families.
There's a lot to chew on there, Alan, and of course this is a conversation I'm sure we'll be coming back to, because it's going to be, it sounds like a long and winding road when it comes to divestment and responding, as you say, to Ireland's changing society. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being with us on iCatholic today.